Well, happy Father's Day. Are you glad to be in the house of the Lord today? It's good to be with you. It's good to have you here worshiping together where it's a little bit cooler than it was last week. So we're not quite at 100% yet, but we're getting there. Also, we had another exciting event this week. We have a brand new soundboard. Our old soundboard was having some struggles and some issues, and so we have a new one. So if you hear something kind of funky coming out, we're still EQing everything to where it needs to be. But there may be some hums or some reverb now and then, but we're working on it, and we're going to get it working to the best of its ability. Are you glad to have Pastor Thad and Katie here with us? That's exciting. We're so glad they are here. Just kind of finish up their first weeks. Still a little bit of the deer in the headlights look, but, you know, we're getting ready to send him off to a week at teen camp. That will change. He'll now come back next week with a little bit of like the exhausted headlights look, no. But no, it's good. We are glad to have them here and starting to get settled in. And we've got some cool things coming up. We've got some neat stuff happening. Today, we're going to start just a short 3-week series talking about, really the main focus is unity. We're heading into the summer months, and another change that we probably made that some of you, I've already heard your thoughts, but if you notice, we removed all the chairs out of the back. We've had some chairs in the back. We brought those out for Easter and things. We still have kind of the comfy chairs, which, by the way, if you're sitting in those, extra offering. So, no, I'm teasing. Sort of. But we took out the extra, like the choir chairs that are on the sides, because usually during the summer months we run just a little bit less, and so it's nice to be closer together, and it helps me. So that being said, we're going to talk about unity and being unified as a body of believers. But we're just going to spend 3 weeks on it. I'm not going to beat this horse. We're going to be short and quick and simple. And I thought it'd be best to start talking about that, to talk about you as an individual as we look at this idea of unity. All right? Are you with me so far? Okay. So here's what we're going to explore what it looks like for us as believers. For the most part, folks who walk into a church building have some sort of belief. Something. Right? There's some sort of belief there. So we're going to talk about us as believers, what it means to live as individuals, but also as one, as part of the body. But before we dig into that, there's one thing that we need to talk about. We need to talk about this word called independence. And some of you are like, uh-oh, is he going to talk about what's happening in our culture? No, don't worry. I'm not going to get into political stuff, okay? So don't worry about that. We're not going to dig into that. We're going to talk about independence. And if we look at our American culture, independence is at its core. Would you agree with that? Independence is. In fact, we're taught from an early age to be independent, to be self-sufficient. We're told to fend for ourselves. And to do that is a sign of strength. It's a sign of maturity. Do things for yourself. And actually, when we get out into the business world, that's a sign of a preferred trait. People look for that. Those who can't really do it alone, or can't go at it alone, or can't really succeed on their own, they're really considered maybe less capable than those who can. It's almost looked down upon if you're not that strong, independent person. Now we value that independence, we value that individualism, but there's a problem with it. There's a rub. We're not created to be that way. If we believe in the biblical narrative of creation, which I think as Christians we would have that biblical worldview, and we believe in the biblical narrative of creation, when God created way back in the book of Genesis, when God created, he said that it's not good for man to be alone. Does that ring a bell for some of you? You've probably heard that before. And not just because he might be lonely or need a buddy. That's not exactly what he's getting at. But God, when he created us and built us and knit us together and hardwired the way that we think, the way that we process, the way that we feel, the way that we love, the way that we do really everything, when God wired us, he wired us to be in relationship with others. Yeah? God wired us to do life together. Way back when I first started, when I transitioned from being a youth pastor to a lead pastor, that's been like 12 years now, hasn't it? 13 years. It's been a while. I remember one of my first sermon series that I ever preached on. I had those notes. I actually pulled them back out to take a peek at them. But it was, I called it Doing Life Together, and there was like a prison theme to it. I decided to bypass that and not go that route today, so you're good. That was the youth pastor in me coming out. I've matured a little bit. Not really. As you can see, my wife's shaking her head, but that's okay. But the reality is God created us to do life together. Would you agree with that? The problem is, the rub is, that most of us don't really know how. It's not that we're anti-community. It's not that we're anti-people. We don't know how because we don't understand it completely. And to be honest, if we don't understand something, we just don't get involved with it and don't do it, right? Like, I don't understand Cardinals fans. That's why I'm a Cubs fan, because we're anti-Cardinals. I know. I have to throw that in there because our new staff members are Cardinals fans, so. Yeah, well, we're not going to get there yet. We don't want to do unity because we've been trained in life, we've been raised up to live life independently, right? We raise our kids to be independent thinkers, hopefully. Everything revolves around that. And we don't necessarily live life in unity because we don't know exactly what we're missing. Man, if we knew what we were missing. You ever gone to a restaurant and you had like one of the most fantastic meals or the best dessert that you've ever put in your mouth? You tell everybody about it because you want them to know about it, right? You don't keep it a secret. You tell everyone about it. There's an awesome place in Tampa called Burns Steakhouse. I know they're like, we know what he's going to talk about. There's a place in Tampa called called Burns Steakhouse. And yes, the meal is fantastic. But the greatest part is there's a place called the dessert room. And you go to a completely separate place and you go upstairs into the dessert room. And it is, outside of Jesus, it's the next life-changing thing you could ever have. It's so good. So if you're ever in Tampa, I mean, if you save up half your year's salary to go to the dessert room at Burns. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. So when we have stuff that we really like or that we know about, we share it with others, yes? I think that's the problem. We don't know what we're missing when we live a life together in unity because we haven't done it well yet. And notice when I say we, I'm not talking about just us inside these walls. I'm talking about our Christianity, our group of Jesus followers. We're still learning this. This is hard. This is hard. And as a result of those things, most of us, we're far too focused on being individuals. Would you agree with that statement? It's a lot about me, I. And this individualism robs us. It robs us of joy. It robs us of strength. It robs us of hope that our culture and our world is so desperate for. You know, our culture wants unity. We just don't know how to do it. And there's only one way to break the habit of doing life alone. There's only one way to do it. The only way to experience the life we were truly meant to live is to learn how to live in and amongst community. And that's what this series is going to be all about. That's what these next 3 weeks are going to be all about. How do we live in community? not just as a group of different individuals, but we're going to learn to live as one. We're going to learn to do life together. Now, this is far more important than a lot of us even realize or think about. It's so much more important. Not just because doing life alone leaves us lacking, but because we are each wonderfully, this is where the individual part comes in. Individually, you are wonderfully and uniquely created to be a part of a bigger community than yourself. You are important. You are special. You are gifted in ways that others aren't. And when all those giftings come together, beautiful things happen. So if we're going to learn to live in community, if we're going to do life together, if we're going to transform the world like we're called to, we need to learn to understand a couple of things about ourselves. And that's what we're going to explore today, the individual, about ourselves, so that we can take one more step closer to living in unity as one. If you have your Bibles, your phones, or tablets, open up to the book of Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. Open up to Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. And before we dig in to read that together, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever discovered one of the reasons you struggle to connect with others is maybe not them, but maybe it's you? Have you ever thought about that? Think hard. You got to do some soul searching here. This is like we're getting real with ourselves, and this can be a little bit painful at times. But have you ever maybe noticed the common denominator in a few things might be you? I'm not saying there aren't times others maybe have left us out or have rejected us. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we've never been the victim of others' hurtful actions. I'm not saying that because that happens, right? We live in a fallen, broken world, and that happens. But if we're honest, more times than not, it's because of us. We're the common denominator in the failed unity. Are you following me? That can be painful to hear, can't it? I think it's because, not that we're bad people. It's not because you're broken or something is wrong with you. That's not what I'm saying. I think it's because we don't understand who or what we are. When I was in youth ministry, we're always in youth ministry, right? We never leave it. And I still love working with teens and young adults and kids and all that stuff. But some of my favorite group of kids to work with are junior high boys. Junior high boys, because they are the most awkward creatures on the planet. They have no idea who they are. They think they begin to know everything. They have comments about everything. Their bodies, they don't understand how their bodies even operate. And there's hundreds of changes going on inside them mentally and physically and emotionally. And they're so upside down and inside out. They have no idea. And that makes them my most favorite people to work with because, oh man, you can have fun with a junior high boy. You can get, wow. We live in a culture that you shouldn't say things like that while you're preaching either. They are hilarious. They say some of the funniest stuff. You can get them to do goofy games and crazy experiments with like eating gross things. And they think it's hilarious, and really junior high boys are funny. The most awkward creatures on the planet. But the problem is, a lot of us don't grow out of that phase, and we don't understand who we are. We don't know who we are. We don't understand what makes us tick. And if we're going to learn to live in community, I think it's important for us to begin to know who we are and the way God designed us to be. Yes? So, here's some questions. Are you ready? What am I? Who are you? And how does that all impact our lives? Those are some big questions. Wouldn't you say that? What am I? Who are you? And how does that impact our lives? Well, let me give you a short answer. You, we, but individually, you are a masterpiece. Have you been called that before? Have you been called a masterpiece before? You are. And so how does that question, being called a masterpiece, how does that impact your life? Well, when you live like you're a masterpiece, it transforms the world around you. And that's the point. You are a masterpiece. We're called to act like it. We're called to behave like we're a masterpiece. That's the one thing I want you to get today. You are a masterpiece. Can you say that with me? Say with me. I'm going to say, I am a masterpiece. Ready? I am a masterpiece. You are. Now, sometimes it takes more than just us repeating it together for that to sink in. But you are. And here's why. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. Paul writing to the church in Ephesus because they were having a bit of an identity problem. They didn't know who they were. They were a young church. They were trying to figure out what their identity was, what their beliefs were, who they were called to reach, all of this stuff. And so in the 6 chapters of the book of Ephesians, the church in Ephesus, the first 3 chapters, Paul is just preaching to them. And he's saying, listen, guys, this is what we're called to believe. This is who Jesus is. This is how God works in the life of a believer. You are a masterpiece. This is what he says. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. You are a masterpiece. That word handiwork, or in some versions it says workmanship, can also be translated into masterpiece. You were created by God. You were created for God, and we were created in the image of God. Don't let anyone tell you less. You are perfect the way God created you to be. Now the issue is sometimes we make a mess of ourselves, right? And Jesus loves us just the way we are, even in our mess. And the beautiful thing is, he refuses to leave us in our mess. Because he knows the worth and value that you are. You are a masterpiece. So we ask that question, how do I act like a masterpiece? How does that work? Well, I'm going to give you just a couple of quick things, and we're going to move along. Number 1, we live up to our purpose. We live up to our purpose. You're a masterpiece created for a purpose. That means you have a job to do. You have a job to do. Because you're God's masterpiece created for good works, which prepared in advance for you to do, that means you have a job. You're not here on accident. You're not just existing. You are there on purpose. And one of the greatest ways that we can honor God with our lives, one of the greatest ways we can live up to our purpose is to do the job that you were created to do. Anybody here play football or had played football? A handful. Anybody are a Sunday armchair quarterback? Yeah. And so we know all the rules. Like we could easily throw on pads and a helmet and walk out, on the field, and we could just do just fine. Not really. But those 11 guys on one side of the ball, they are a team. All 11 guys. But each of those 11 guys have a specific job to do. Yes? And if one out of those 11 miss their job, the play can go catastrophically wrong. Would you agree? Those of you who play, those of you who know, it can go 1 out of 11. That's actually not bad. That's still like a 91 point whatever percent. That's still a passing grade. That's still an A. But it doesn't matter. 1 out of 11, even though other 10 do their job perfectly, if one does their job wrong, that play goes catastrophically sideways. So we're called to do our job to the best of our ability for the glory of God. Do you hear me? George Barna in the Barna Research Group says it takes up to, on average, 17 to 18 interactions with a non-believer before that person becomes a believer. So if you are, on average, one of those 18, what happens if we do our job wrong? What happens if we don't live up to our calling and act like the masterpiece that we are? Maybe that average then increases. And that area of discipleship, the area of reaching out others becomes more difficult. Are you following me? Do you see the impacts? It's not just our job on a football team. We're talking about eternal impacts for people's lives. You are called to live like a masterpiece. Now, this is important. You may be a masterpiece, but if you aren't living out your purpose, if you aren't doing your job that you're created to do, then you aren't living up to your value. Masterpieces are quite valuable. Yes? They're quite valuable. And if you're not living up to your value, you're not living up to your potential. Like this, a vintage car. A vintage car could be considered a masterpiece. But you don't use it to haul around the soccer team. Right? No, that's what minivans are for. Or in our case, the circus mobile, the big beast. Yeah. A vintage guitar. A beautiful vintage guitar is a masterpiece. You don't let your 7-year-old come and bang on it and trash it, right? You keep it pristine so it can be used to its full potential. Or if you had the original Mona Lisa, you wouldn't use the Mona Lisa to cover up a hole in a wall. That's not what it's for. If it's a masterpiece, you use it according to its value. Yes? And since you are a masterpiece, I want to encourage you, and I want to just help you with this. You need to live up to your purpose. Now that brings up another question. Then what's my purpose? What's my job? What am I created for? Right? It's a good question. Your job, your purpose, what you were created for, it's to represent Jesus. It's to be Jesus. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we reflecting? What do we look like? It means we're called to treat others the way Jesus would. We're called to have conversations with others the way he would, to manage our time the way he would, to take care of our body the way he would. So if we're going to be a masterpiece, we have to live up to our purpose. We say, how am I representing Jesus? Am I representing Jesus in my relationships? Dads, are we trying to parent our kids and raise them in a way that Jesus would? Are we managing our finances the way Jesus would? How am I representing Jesus? Never ever think what you're doing in this life doesn't matter. Never ever think that. See, when you represent Jesus, whatever you are, you are living a life of infinite value. You're more than yourself. That's a cool thing. Wouldn't you agree? Your job is to reflect Jesus back to our world, because sometimes the only Jesus people will see is you. Sometimes the only Jesus people will see is you. The second way we act like a masterpiece is this. We recognize the value of others. We recognize the value of others. Just like you were created in God's image and therefore a masterpiece, everyone that you interact with, regardless of who they are, where they're from, what they've done, what they haven't done, what they look like, what they smell like, whatever, everyone you come in contact with, remember, they're a masterpiece as well. So how do you treat others? How do you value others? If everyone else is also a masterpiece, then you have to ask yourself, am I treating them like a masterpiece? Remember the whole conversation between Jesus and the rich young ruler? How do I follow all the rules, I do all this stuff, I'm good with everything, and Jesus says, well, go sell all your possessions and give them to the poor. And he walked away sad. Because he valued his stuff over people. And then Jesus had another conversation with an expert in the law. a lawyer, a Pharisee, somebody who was super important. Hey, I follow all the rules. How do I get into heaven? How does this work? Well, Jesus boiled it down to two things. You love God and you love others. Are you treating others like a masterpiece? Are you loving others? Stop and think that, just for a minute. Stop and think about that. We love the idea that we're a masterpiece. We love how we are made in the image of God. And if that's true, then we also have to understand that everyone else is made in the image, and they are a masterpiece as well. Even if they disagree with your political stance on things, even if they voted differently, even if they went out to a protest and held signs and said things that you don't agree with, they are still a child of the King. They are still a masterpiece. They just don't know who they were created by yet. So what's our role? We have to understand that we are created in His image and that we are a masterpiece. We are a handiwork of Him, and that so are our neighbors. They just don't know it yet. And so it's our purpose, our job, our calling to reflect Jesus back to them and show them exactly who they are. The New Testament is full of things that we're called to avoid, to kind of help maintain and recognize our value, but it's also full of things that we should be doing. That's what I love about who we are as Nazarenes and who we are as this church. Instead of being this church that says we don't do this, that, we don't act like this, we don't put these things in our body, whatever, we have this list of do not stuff, right? Instead of that, what if we flipped the script and said, because we are a follower of Jesus, because we are a Nazarene, because this is who we are, look at what we get to do. Amen. Folks, that list is a whole lot longer than the do nots. So why do we get so hyper-focused on the do nots? Look at what we get to do. Because you are a masterpiece, look at the opportunities. Because your neighbor is a masterpiece, you don't have something in common. You may root for a different team. You may vote for somebody different. You may listen to different music or enjoy different food, but you still have something in common. You are created for a purpose, and you are a masterpiece. Are you following me? Paul writes these words to one of these early churches, the church in Philippi. In Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, he says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility." I like that word. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. Folks, we want to learn to live in community. Why don't we read His Word? Why don't we start there? Do nothing out of selfish ambition. We've seen a lot of things done out of selfish ambition recently. We hear about it all the time. It's all over social media. Social media can be a great tool, but it can also be a death sentence for some. Do nothing out of selfish ambition. Manipulating others, trying to get your way, trying to get a one-up on somebody else, being better than. Do nothing out of vain conceit. See, selfish ambition and vanity, they're the status quo for a lot of our culture. Would you agree with that? It really is. But for those who follow Jesus, Paul says, no, don't do that. That's not how a masterpiece treats another masterpiece. Right? Instead, we have to learn to value others above ourselves. This is what Jesus did. This is how Jesus lived and impacted humanity. And when we live like that, we reflect Jesus back to our world. Folks, did you know that's attractive? It is. People like that. This probably isn't news to you, but people like to be treated nicely. Yeah? People like to be treated nicely. In fact, Paul follows it up with this. Later on, in the same breath, when he was talking to the Philippians, he said, in your relationship with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his advantage. Instead, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. The way a masterpiece treats another masterpiece is by making yourself a humble servant like Christ. I think we have an example of that. In just a couple of days, somebody's going to be celebrating a 60th wedding anniversary. Would that be right, Kay and Richard? Thursday, isn't it? Yeah. I think 60 years, there's probably some secrets to that. But I think a big part of that is you love Jesus and you treat others the way Jesus would treat them. Would you agree? Congratulations on 60 years. That's awesome. We treat others the way Jesus would treat others. Yes? We love unconditionally. We don't place ourselves higher than anyone else. We reflect Jesus back to the world by serving. Parents to kids, how are you serving them? Husbands to wives, how are we serving her? Wife to husband, how are you serving him? At your job, how are you serving those above you and below you? In your neighborhood, how are you serving your neighbors? At the stores, in the marketplaces, how are we treating those who cut us off in the aisle? On I-95, no, we're not going to talk about that one. Online, on social media, those that we don't have a face to put to, that are awesome keyboard warriors. How are we serving them? How are we reflecting Jesus back to them? Folks, you were created by God and you are a masterpiece. Every single one of you are important. You all have purpose. No matter where you are in this season of life, you are valued. Do you believe that yet? So, if we're going to be one, if we're going to be a body that lives in unity, if we're going to do life together, if we're going to do this community thing right, then we have to recognize that everyone around us is a masterpiece. We have to. So hearing that, we have to ask a question, what's the takeaway now? What do I do with all this? Okay, so Pastor said I'm a masterpiece. I'm supposed to treat others like they're masterpieces. He gave us some scripture, some reasons why. So now what do I do with it all? Right? What's the takeaway? Well, let me give you just 3 simple steps. Are you ready? Very, very, it's not hard. I think we really overcomplicate the Bible. It's not hard. Number one, pray that God will help you realize that you are a masterpiece. Ask him to show you. Ask him to reveal it to you. Ask him to show you your value in his eyes. Ask him to see yourself the way he sees you. Maybe that could be a new part of your morning routine as you're getting ready for work and you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, that doesn't look like a masterpiece today. That's what hair gel and makeup, well, some of you hair gel works, others, no, I'm teasing. Maybe part of your morning routine, when you're getting ready, you look in that mirror, you see that reflection back. All right, God, show me. I know this is who you've created me to be, but I'm not feeling it. And folks, We've all been there. Not feeling it today. Ask God to reveal it to you. Number 2, ask him to help you see others the way he sees them. I've used this image, this idea before. It's where we take out and we put on our God goggles, right? We put on our God goggles, and what it does is it helps us see through his lenses versus our own. Ask the Lord to give you a set of God goggles to see others the way he sees them and values them. Ask him to show you how you can serve others and treat them like masterpieces the way you are. And then part 3, don't wait for the perfect time. Just start serving. Because if we wait for the perfect time, you'll never find it. I've had people come and ask us, we've had 6 children and we've got another one waiting for us in heaven, and they're saying, hey, when's the right time to start having kids? Those of you who've been there, there is no right time. There is no right time. It's when God allows it. So don't wait for the right time to start serving. Don't wait for the right time to start trying to live in unity and connection together. Just start doing it. One of my favorite lines to say is people ask, how do you pastor a church? Well, you fake it till you make it. You just start doing it. Right? When I was 15, I made a deal with my dad. My dad said, listen, Eric, when you turn 16, I'll buy you your first car. If you don't go on any dates and you don't kiss any girls. As a 15-year-old, that was a hard decision. I said, you're on. I did it. Come 16, I got my car with no engine. Along with the car came the book. Remember they used to print these books that told you all about the car? Like don't drink the battery acid, things like that. No, they told you like all the important stuff. And in that book, it told you, all the ins and outs and how to put an engine in a car. So I got a car with no engine and a book. And he said, oh, by the way, I found an engine for you. If you save up a couple more $100, you can buy it from that junkyard, and it will fit perfectly in your car. So that's what I did. And I read the book, and I learned. But more than just in the book, it took just getting in there, getting your hands greasy and messy, and starting to turn a wrench, even though I'm like, I'm not sure that's the right one. We're going to try it anyway. Let's see what happens. Pretty soon, you sit in the seat, and you turn the key, and it worked. And it worked. I'm not a mechanic. That's not who I am. But we began to fake it till we made it. And pretty soon the car started to work. Folks, there's never a right time to start doing it. We just do it. Start living in unity. Just start trying. What if I mess up? Then you mess up and you try something else. And then we learn, we remember, we know our history. We don't mess up like that again. Yeah? That's the purpose of history, right? To not repeat the same mistakes. Maybe we should no, I'm not going to get into that either. If we're going to find unity and we're going to live as one, then we just got to start doing it. Understand that you are a masterpiece. God created you for a purpose. Understand that your neighbors, your coworkers, those around you, they are masterpieces as well. Let's treat them like a masterpiece. And then, folks, let's not wait for the right time. Let's just start doing it. Are you with me? Can we stand together? And I want to pray for you. I want to pray pray for you that the Lord would reveal to you that you are created on purpose for a reason. I want to pray for you that you could begin to see